He's been in hiding for 4 years now.
This time the whole square had been hired out. 3 cinemas playing the film at the same time.
Crew-wise, there's something like 150 of the world's press here, really.
Fantastic. I mean, the movie is a revelation. It's a complete break from everything that anybody can imagine.
Coming up in just a moment on Live at 5, his name is Bond, James Bond, and he's back. He's really back. We're going to be live in London's Leicester Square for the premiere of Casino Royale.
Casino Royale blew all expectations out of the water and left them miles away. It was immediately regarded as one of the best Bond films of all time. It was a huge success at the box office, among the critics, and most importantly, with the majority of the Bond fans. All the initial doubts of Craig being suited to play James Bond completely disappeared, and now everybody couldn't praise him enough.
What do you think when they unveiled Daniel Craig as the new Bond?
I thought he was the top Bond. I knew it was going to be, without seeing the film, I know he's going to be a great guy.
I think it's going to be the best Bond for a long time. Yeah, without question.
Daniel is a very modern Bond, quite, visceral, very animal, and also very tender. So I think, women will really like him.
He's very sexy in a very quirky kind of way. So I want to be overwhelmed by him tonight.
We must choose a good actor, and only Daniel Craig, I think he can play this part.
Watch what happens. He's just so sexy and tough, and I love him.
The franchise goes on. It is the most successful British movie franchise ever. It goes on. Daniel Craig will go on, and he's really shown those critics that he can do the business. Bond is back.
It's falling into place. It's just, it's a big piece of machinery to get going, and we've got to make this one better. We've got expectation against us now. There's a lot more work to do on this one. Oh, it seems that way, or maybe I've just got selective memory about the last one, because the last one seems sort of a walk in the park compared with this one now.
With Casino Royale being such a success, we all couldn't wait to see what was in store in this new era of Bond. And luckily, we didn't have to wait long. The 22nd installment in the series was announced to be called Quantum of Solace, the title of one of Fleming's short stories. Though I was familiar with the title, I remember vividly standing in line to buy a ticket in the cinema, and everybody here in Holland would be like, 2 tickets for James Bond please. Nobody actually said the title of the film when buying a ticket, because it was just a really weird one for casual fans. It kinda translates to a measure of comfort. The title seemed to have just been randomly selected from one of Fleming's books just a couple of hours before the announcement.
It's a name that's been under wraps, but today the movie known as Bond 22 was given an official title, even if it was only chosen 48 hours ago.
The most intriguing thing about the whole announcement, however, was that this was going to be an actual sequel to Casino Royale.
It is a follow-on from Casino Royale.
It's true, this is a direct sequel, and in fact it takes place literally an hour after the last film ended.
This was something completely new to the series. The movie was going to pick up from just roughly 1 hour after Casino Royale. I was very excited about this. I always felt like Diamonds Are Forever needed to be a sequel to Majesties to tie up the story with Bond's wife getting killed. But we all know they ended up going into a completely different direction with that one. In Casino, Bond had to deal with the suicide of Vesper, another key element to the series, and I was so glad they were going to continue with this arc. We learned that Vesper was blackmailed into giving information to a mysterious organization, forced to betray Bond against her will, leading to her killing herself. What mysterious organization was Vesper part of? Who are these people? Are they the potential new modern day version of Spectre? With the rebooted world set in place in Casino Royale, there was plenty of great groundwork to cover, and with this being an actual sequel, I couldn't wait to see these questions getting answered. Neil Purvis and Robert Wade had a first draft of the script done for Bond 22 while Casino Royale was still in production. Supposedly it would feature Eva Green returning as Vesper in flashbacks that would come to Bond's mind. None of that ended up in the film though. Originally the movie was aimed to be released in November 2007, just 1 year after Casino Royale. Now, a Bond film hasn't been released in a consecutive year since The Man with the Golden Gun in the 70s. I have no clue how they would have done that so fast in this day and age. As a matter of fact, Quantum marks the last time to this date to be a Bond film that was released only 2 years after the previous one. I'm not sure we'll ever see that happening again, because the production was still extremely tight. In June 2007, Mark Forster was hired to direct the film. Well, there was still no approved script, and on November 1st, 2007, the Writers Guild of America started a writer's strike. Only 2 hours before the strike began, a script by Paul Haggis, Michael Wilson and Mark Forster himself was barely completed. The actual filming wouldn't start until January 2008, while the strike was still going on. No writers could be hired to work on the script during the early production, so cast and crew were forced to write dialogue and scenes themselves until the strike had ended. All that with a looming release date of November 2008 getting closer with each day. You can imagine pressure was really on for Forster to get this movie done, not to mention trying to live up to the expectations after the huge success that was Casino Royale. I still remember when I was first seeing this film in the cinema that I wasn't sure if the film had already began or if it was just another trailer of some movie that they were showing. Well, it turned out the film had already started. No gun barrel at the start. I was kind of disappointed by this. I loved how they handled that in Casino Royale, with it showing up just before the opening credits, symbolizing Bond's first kill and all, and it marking a pretty special start to a new rebooted era. But here, the film just drops in out of nowhere with the camera panning into a tunnel with oval-shaped openings, though from the inside of the tunnel they are all of a sudden rectangular. Already I'm distracted. You don't get much time to think about the absent gun barrel or the inconsistent tunnel though, as the action immediately kicks in. One of the first things to notice in Quantum of Solace is the incredibly fast editing. Your eyes really have to get used to it all, and in various parts of the film it's hard to know what the hell is going on. In the cinema I was saying to myself, well, it's 2008 after all, it's all a bit snappier and faster nowadays. Get used to it, it's Bond. As I was flickering my eyes carefully trying to focus on all the random shots thrown at me. Well, it's been exactly 10 years since this film was released and the editing of the film is still way too snappy and fast. It's not a bad opening by the way. Bond is still in Italy where Casino Royale left off, fleeing from some bad guys in a car chase shooting at him. And I just have to mention how awesome I find it that the bad guys are driving an Alfa Romeo 159. I mentioned before during my Octopussy review that I grew up in a true Alfa Romeo crazed family, so seeing the bad guys in some proper wheels this time is a joy to watch. Also love those teasing shots of their first reveal with the Alfa Romeo logo appearing from the shadows. It still gives me the chills. I know I'm probably the only one, but hey, I think it's great. So anyway, there's some action-packed shooting and crashes and Bond's door flying off for whatever reason. It's really hard to see how exactly that happens. You really have to slow the film down, and even then it's still hard to tell what exactly is sticking out of the big truck. It's like a random big metal bar sticking into Bond's car door that chops it off. But hey, the music is great and all the action certainly gets your adrenaline going. The Italian police are soon on the tail of the chasing cars as well, and cars are crashing into trucks, Bond has a badass shooting moment, and cars are flying off cliffs. It's all pretty cool. Soon after getting rid of the villains chasing him, Bond arrives in Siena, and we get one of the many fancy title cards the movie is criticized for a lot. It's not exactly my taste, but I'm not too bothered by it. All I was thinking at the time was, Siena? So, if this movie takes place just 1 hour after Casino Royale ended at the Lake Como in the northern region of Italy, how on earth did Bond make his way over to a city 5 hours southeast of there so freaking fast? But I guess it's easily acceptable to think that the car chase itself takes place an hour after Casino Royale ended, and right after the car chase we have a time skip and Bond eventually arrives in Siena. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And besides, this is far from the most illogical element in the movie, considering the fact this takes place right after Casino Royale. So Bond drives into a hidden MI6 safe house. There's a long tunnel and Bond gets out of the car and it's revealed Mr. White has been in the trunk this whole time.
It's time to get out.
I always loved that payoff. It makes for a good laugh and a great connection point between Casino Royale and Quantum. It doesn't really make much sense that Mr. White's henchmen would be shooting at Bond knowing that he's in the trunk though, but whatever, it's a decent action-packed pre-title sequence that does manage to pull you in. The title sequence itself is something completely different. Back in the past, we were usually accustomed to Maurice Binder's opening credits from Thunderbolt onwards, the classic silhouetted naked chicks and bright colors. As we entered the more modern era of the 90s, Daniel Kleinman took over with GoldenEye and went on to make most of the sequences I consider the best ones in the series. But now with Quantum, it's done by MK12, which is like the odd one in the series. MK12 sounds more like the name of a gun or a plane or the name to a random file on your computer that you don't want your mom to click on. But no, MK12 is a graphics company who happen to have done one Bond title sequence. They were possibly chosen by Forster. Who knows? I always felt Quantum's opening seems more like the opening of a James Bond video game. It's mostly Bond shooting some sand dunes and the occasional chicks laying in the sand. It's not bad by any means, but it's just very different. The song, however, is one of the worst ones in the series. Another Way to Die by Alicia Keys and Jack White. To me, it's just one of the most inappropriate songs I would consider to be a Bond song. If there was ever a Bond song on the radio, you usually instantly recognize it to be a Bond title song, even if you're just a casual fan. But with this, I think you would just think it's a random R&B alternative rock song that sounds pretty bad. And you'd be pretty spot on there too. I always felt that the rejected song Forever by Chris Wolf and Eva Almer should have been the title song. As a matter of fact, I have that song in my playlist on my phone and listen to it regularly. It really fits Bond so extremely well. So Bond is inside the MI6 safe house to interrogate Mr. White along with M, who I guess quickly flew over to Italy after previously being seen inside her office in London at the end of Casino Royale. M has dug up some information about Vespa's boyfriend, who is revealed to still be alive. Bond is instructed to leave those personal manners behind and not go after him. Bond agrees, but still pockets the photograph anyway when M's not looking. This reveals a lot about the state of mind that Bond is going to be in during this movie. We really don't know anything about Mr. White. He's been the mysterious figure the whole time in Casino Royale, so in this movie we can expect to finally learn some more about him, right? Well, he instantly does get a cool moment.
The first thing you should know about us is that we have people everywhere. Am I right?
It's a great moment in the film, allowing for some more intrigue about this mysterious organization Mr. White is part of. So M's personal bodyguard Mitchell turns out to have been working for this organization all along, and Mr. White escapes. And apart from this cool moment, we really don't get any other satisfying answers throughout the whole film concerning Mr. White. Supposedly the end of the film would feature Bond interrogating Mr. White again at his place, which really sounds like one of the key moments to the film. Of course, that was just dropped, probably as a result of the many changes the script was going through throughout the chaotic production period this movie has had. The editing of the movie again becomes a problem for me here. So, the first time I saw this, I thought M had been shot by Mitchell. The editing is just so fast to see that it's actually the bullet ricocheting off the metal pole. Who on earth would notice that in the 10th of a second that it's on? I know I wasn't alone in this. So Mitchell escapes and Bond soon starts chasing him on foot. The foot chase is constantly intertwined with the shots of the horse racing outside, which really adds nothing to the plot apart from confusion. We constantly get distracting shots of the race and close-ups of random people in the crowd, even when Bond is already inside of tunnels completely away from the area. I know that these shots were the first shots filmed for this movie because this is an annual event only taking place in June in Siena, so they filmed it way before there was even a finished screenplay. The filmmakers really wanted to film that race and figure out where to fit it into the story later, so I guess that's why they just ended up slapping these shots randomly throughout the chase, and we can't really appreciate it either because of Forster's fast editing and shots that all seem to last about a tenth of a second, completely disorienting you. The chase continues on some rooftops, which really shows anyone how much of an influence the Bourne films had on Bond at the time. We know Casino Royale had some Bourne influences too, but that one managed to be very original and still feel like an actual James Bond film. In a lot of the action of Quantum, it feels so Bourne inspired, it just instantly reminds you of that franchise, but then just executed a lot worse. I do love the shot of Bond and Mitchell falling down into the building with the camera following them down, that's pretty cool. And the chase comes to an end with Bond killing Mitchell, the only lead to Mr. White and the mysterious organization. In Casino Royale we saw Bond doing this type of stuff too. It was part of the character development he went through in that film. Shooting first and asking questions later was one of the flaws of Bond's ego, and we saw him grow into the more professional 007 we know him as by the end of the film. But here in Quantum, this flaw returns and it seems Bond has to go through that whole process all over again. So anyway, we cut to London. M and Bond are seen inside of Mitchell's flat where we really don't learn anything new yet, other than the fact that this mysterious organization is really mysterious. M complains that she knows nothing about them. Yeah, you and me both, M. It's a scene that could have easily been cut and wouldn't change anything. Immediately following that is the scene inside MI6. Wait, this is MI6? This looks more like the headquarters of Apple Computers than the Secret Service. What the hell happened? I thought this movie took place straight after Casino Royale. We saw M sitting inside the classic office of the MI6 building right at the end of that movie. Now, I'm sure a couple of days have passed since the events of Casino Royale, but a whole new building? Really? Of course I understand we're in a different movie and thus we get different set designs, but this really doesn't do the continuity any justice. Forster talked about bringing some classic elements of Bond back into this movie, but this stuff seriously makes you wonder if he ever even saw a Bond movie. Heck, did he even saw the previous one? So anyway, the plot advances.
We have a Mr. Edmund Slate returning to Port-au-Prince from Heathrow this morning. His entry documents have him staying at the Hotel des Salines. He's in room 325.
Now, if you're anything like me, you were completely distracted by that flashy futuristic table and all the random shots of stuff moving around on it, and the whole explanation of why exactly Bond needs to go to Haiti next isn't exactly made clear, at least not on your first viewing. I remember on my first viewing in the cinema, this was the first instance in which I was slowly losing grip on the actual plot. Something I can't really say about any other Bond film. Even when watching this movie nowadays, I sometimes find myself pausing and rewinding to keep track of what's going on in the story. So apparently they found a dollar bill in Mitchell's apartment that through some fingerprints or other crap links him to a contact by the name of Edmund Slate who lives in Haiti, hence why we move there next. As Bond enters the hotel room in Haiti, we got another moment that instantly reminded me of the Bourne identity, as the fight with Slate suddenly kicks in. Bond ends up recklessly killing his only lead. Again. As he leaves the building again, he's then suddenly picked up by a mysterious chick, our main Bond girl Camille Montez, played by Olga Kurylenko, and we quickly learn that the guy Bond just killed was originally sent out to kill her. Realizing this, he quickly dumps Bond and races off. So Bond steals a bike from a guy that happens to be trailing her and casually performs a badass bike flip and follows down Camille to the docks. We are introduced here to our main villain, Dominic Green, played by Matthew Almeric. And I'm just gonna throw this out there immediately. Dominic Green has to be the most forgettable, uninteresting villain the series ever saw. I always maintain that I think Charles Gray is the worst Bond villain in the series, but at the very least, he was memorable. Green is just some entrepreneur, businessman with no distinguishing features or menace or anything noteworthy to make him an interesting threat. I guess the only thing you can note is that his last name is Green. We've also had a Mr. White and a Mr. Slate, so I guess members of this mysterious organization all have color last names. Could be a coincidence too. I mean, after all, his henchman is just called Elvis. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Elvis. And just like the main villain, he's the most forgettable henchman in the series. I don't think his name is even mentioned throughout the whole movie. You'll have to pay attention to the end credits to find out his name is Elvis. I don't know why they decided to even call him Elvis to begin with. It's not like he bears any resemblance to the king of rock and roll himself. Anyway, Camille has some relationship to Green. She's mad at him for sending a hitman after her, and Green just shows he killed some geologist laying dead in the water. At this point, part of the plot already starts to become more vague to me. I always wondered what's wrong with Camille's back. Her skin appears to be burned. It's never explained in the movie. It's suggested that this is the result of the events of her backstory, of being in a house that was set on fire, and I think that's the correct and most logical explanation to this too. But there's also suggestions on the internet that Olga Kuryenko had a tattoo removed just before filming. I don't know if that's true though. Her back seems fine on other pictures. We also learn about a secondary villain of the film, General Medrano, a corrupt exiled Bolivian general who Camille seems to have a personal grudge against and she desperately wants to get to him. Green hands her over to him. Meanwhile, Bond was overlooking this whole thing from outside of the complex and decides to rescue her. This ensues another major action scene. One thing director Mark Forster was overly proud of with this film was the fact that he incorporated the 4 major elements into each action scene.
Water!
So the opening car chase was supposed to resemble the Earth action scene, and this one represents the water one. You can find a dozen of interviews on the internet of Forster proudly talking about this, as if it's some important feature to the film. It's really ridiculous. I think instead of trying to make this film so arty and symbolic behind the scenes, he could have focused on something much more basic, like the editing. Because, once again, the editing of this action scene is just terrible. Bond gets on a boat, throws an anchor to another boat, and somehow manages to capsize it through the air. It's all filmed in Forster's signature epileptic speed, so you don't really get much time to think about it, but it really makes you go, what the hell just happened? The shots are all over the place and are always followed by shots from completely different angles. You really just miss the sense of what's going on and where everything is in relation to each other. It's a real shame because I think the actual stunt work done for the scene is all pretty impressive, but the way it's brought to the screen just completely ruins it. After the chase, Bond just gets rid of Camille by handing her over to some random bypasser. It's kinda strange, Bond just keeps getting rid of the only leads in this movie. He knows she has a clear relationship to the villains of this film, but nah, don't need her. At the very least, it makes for a nice Bondian one-liner.
Thank you. She's seasick.
Meanwhile, Dominic Green is revealed to be in cahoots with the CIA, as he's setting up a deal with Gregory Beam, head of the South American section of the CIA, as well as Felix Leiter, who returns once again portrayed by Jeffrey Wright, which I was very pleased about. Oh, and Elvis is also there. So anyway, Green makes a deal with the CIA that they won't interfere with his business in exchange for access to Bolivian oil stocks. For the first time in the series, the CIA are portrayed to be an actual threat, as they are instructed to take care of Bond.
James Bond, British Secret Service. I don't know how I could have missed that.
I will need you to get rid of him for me.
Yeah. That's not gonna be a problem.
So Bond tracks down Green to Austria, where there is a big meeting of the mysterious organization taking place at the opera. Bond casually sneaks into the place at the back entrance, steals a tuxedo of some random guy, and finds out members of this organization are all getting a goodie bag. So he steals that one too, killing the guy in the process and casually breaking off the door handle of the bathroom like the badass that he is. The bag contains an earpiece for all the members of the organization, and we learn that the name of the organization is called Quantum. This is one of the better moments in the movie. All the members are scattered around the opera talking business with each other at a public place. It's actually pretty cool. Oh, and Elvis is also there. Anyway, we learn that Green is planning something sinister, and Bond soon makes his presence known.
Can I offer an opinion? I really think you people should find a better place to meet.
So the Quantum members quickly get up, enabling Bond to quickly ID them using his 3D camera phone. Mr. White is clever enough to remain seated though. Oh, and apparently he has a wife. That's really all we learn from him, because we never see him again in this film. This whole scene is pretty intriguing, and it's definitely among the stuff I was hoping to see in a sequel to Casino Royale. Both Bond and the audience know nothing about this mysterious quantum organization. We're in the dark about it all. We learn that they're big and powerful, and even MI6 has no record of these people. It's really about time they give us something substantial about these people now. Unfortunately, again, it doesn't really go much deeper. The gunfight scene following is another example of the arty, weird, dramatic editing that Forster is going for with this film. It's like Forster is trying so hard to make his movie eccentric and sophisticated, removing the sound, intercutting the action with shots of the opera, just like he did with the horse racing. Forster is just full of weird creative choices, like having the 4 elements in all the action scenes. Also notice how throughout the whole movie, all locations Bond visits are either brown, black, white or grey, which is without a doubt another conscious art choice Forster made about this film. The same holds for the costumes people are wearing, it's all a similar palette. Anyway, Green manages to escape, but Bond is able to catch one of the Quantum bodyguards and doesn't learn anything from him either, throws him off the roof and he's killed by Green's men. So M receives all the pictures Bond made from the Quantum members and we learn that one of the guys he ID'd is supposedly a pretty important member, Guy Haines. Finally, we're given something now. M also finds out about the rooftop throw and puts a consequence on Bond's movements.
Restrict Bond's movements, cancel his cards. Put an alert on his passports, all of them.
Oh no, not Bond's passports and credit cards. Bond still manages to make his way over to Italy anyway, to reunite with his old ally Mathis. At the end of Casino Royale there was some suspicion raised that Mathis might be a traitor. We learned later that it was Vesper who betrayed Bond, not Mathis. But Bond did clearly state this.
Well, at least this clears Mathis.
No.
No?
No. We'll just prove that she's guilty, not that he's innocent. Could have been a double blind, keep sweating it.
You don't trust anyone, do you, James?
No.
Apparently though, all of that is dropped and Bond and Mathis are back to being good buddies. They talk about the pictures Bond took at the opera, but none of them are ever heard from again, and they have zero relevance to the plot or Bond's progress of learning anything about Quantum. A minute ago that Guy Haines that Bond ID'd was revealed to be a pretty important guy though, right?
That's Guy Haines. You don't know him? Should I?
I want to know everything we don't know about Haines.
Yes, Mom.
But of course all of the stuff with Guy Haines was cut from the script too, and goes nowhere. He may as well have ID'd Homer Simpson here, it really wouldn't have made any difference to the story. And what follows is another weird editing choice.
Amore, dai, vieni, voglio sentire le tue mani sulla schiena.
It really took me years to realize that this was actually a visual cue that Mathis has decided to go with Bond. The chick turns around and sees that Mathis is suddenly missing, apparently packing his bag, and Bond and Mathis are off on a jet to Bolivia to continue Bond's search for the Quantum organization. But why does everything have to be conveyed in such a strange way in this film? Aboard of the jet we get a first glimmer that Bond is still emotionally unstable over the whole Vesper thing, sipping away multiple Vesper martinis and reminding us a little bit that this is in fact a sequel to Casino Royale. I'd like to have seen the story revolve around this stuff a lot more. Maybe this kind of stuff was featured a lot in the Purvis and Wade script that never made it. Who knows? Anyway, the film continues in Bolivia, where Bond's mission to discover more about this quantum organization continues. And it's here where we were introduced to Agent Fields, played by Gemma Arterton, and she's a desk clerk working for MI6, who for whatever reason has gotten the job to bring in 007 and take him straight back to London. Of course Bond doesn't give a crap about such orders coming from someone who looks like she could be an intern, and just gets into the taxi anyway.
I think she has handcuffs.
I do hope so.
I remember this was definitely one of the few moments in the cinema I was laughing about. For a brief second I felt like I was watching a classic Bond movie again, and I just wish they packed a lot more of that stuff into this film. We're soon moved into another pointless scene, full of weird creative choices of the taxi driving up to the hotel while Mathis is on the phone and the cab driver is talking all kinds of nonsense about the weather and his grandmother, and we got the intertwining subtitles of both of them sharing pointless information. It just adds to so much confusion. I did like that Bond doesn't settle for the cheap hotel that Fields got him, so he fixes up a much better place with another funny line.
Hola, somos maestros on año sabbatical y nos ganamos la lotería.
So, since Bond now has this MI6 intern around, he figures, may as well bang her while I'm at it.
I can't find the stationery. You come and help me look.
So, he just sleeps with her for no real reason. Speaking of Agent Fields, her name is never mentioned throughout the entire film. As a matter of fact, she's quite secretive about it.
It might be useful to know your real name.
Fields. Just Fields.
Much like with Elvis, you have to sit around for the credits to find out her first name is Strawberry. It's kinda weird to have the big punchline joke of her first name only be there at the credits. Like, are we supposed to laugh at that at the credits, or what? It's just another weird choice. In the night, Bond and Fields attend a fundraising party hosted by Green. We're shown that Felix Leiter is also there, shadowing Bond. We know that the CIA is instructed by Green to chase down and take care of Bond. But yeah, by now you'll know it's not like things are actually played out in this movie. Camille returns too, for whatever reason. I honestly don't know what her motives are to be here. Knowing Green tried to get her killed and all, I guess she's still trying to get to that General Medrano guy. Oh, and Elvis is also there. Oh, and wait, this time we actually get his key moment in the movie. It's here where Elvis' big henchman's signature is revealed.
Oh my gosh! I'm so sorry.
Yes, remember Jaws had his teeth, Oddjob had his head? Well, Elvis has his toupee, and in typical Forster fashion, it's only in frame for about 1/10 of a second. The first time in cinema, I think I must have blinked and missed it, because it barely registered with me until later that this guy was even in this movie. I mean, would the film really have been any different without him? So anyway, Bond takes Camille with him in an attempt to hopefully finally learn something about Green and Quantum, and they're soon stopped by some corrupt Bolivian cops, and we discover Mathis was attacked and put in the trunk of a car, framing Bond in the process. The corrupt cops shoot at him and Bond takes care of the cops. We get a moment of Mathis dying in Bond's arms, which is seemingly supposed to be pretty emotional, but Bond just ends up shoving him into the dumpster and takes his wallet in order to survive. It's really weird. I don't know, maybe it's supposed to showcase the realistic gritty world Bond is now in, but it sure takes away a lot of the emotion of this scene. Imagine Bond dumping Vesper's body into a dumpster at the end of Casino. It's just another weird choice that made for more confusion. Moving along with what little story we have, Bond and Camille steal a big plane to survey the desert, which supposedly has something to do with Green's big plan called the Tierra Project, and at this point we don't know anything about it yet. We learn Camille used to work for the Bolivian Secret Service and is trying to get to General Medrano for personal reasons. Much like Bond is trying to get to Green and Quantum because they are part of the same organization that Vesper was blackmailed and forced into work for. It's a nice moment to get some character development going. Both of them have similar destinies and are out for revenge and are trying to BAM! Cue another action scene. This time we make way of Forster's elemental action scene of WIND! It's mainly another plane shooting at the airplane and some more fast editing. There's some bullets being shot through the aircraft's fuselage and Bond and Camille eventually are forced to jump out with just one parachute. We get some shots of them falling down, which was filmed in a wind tunnel, but it's all fast and snappy again, so it's over before you know it. The pair are dropped into a sinkhole and discover that Green is damming Bolivia's water supply to create a monopoly. It's also here where we learn about Camille's backstory. General Medrano murdered and raped her and her family, and it just doesn't really come off as well as it should. I think Olga Kurylenko is one of the most wasted actresses to ever play a Bond girl, because honestly, she's really hot and sexy and does know how to act. I was much more invested into her character in The November Man alongside Pierce Brosnan, where she ironically played a character with an almost identical backstory, but that was executed a lot better. She was also pretty good in Johnny English Strikes Again, showing her sexy side a lot more 10 years later. But here, she's just in a movie full of convoluted intertwining backstories and her potential is not done any justice. We get some more arty editing of Bond and Camille strolling through the desert walking back to civilization as we see the population struggle without water because of Green's plan. As Bond gets back to the hotel, M is there to take Bond in herself. She's really all over the place in the field in this movie. Her trust in Bond is apparently at an all-time low now for her to get him herself. We also learned that Green killed Fields and covered her completely in oil as an homage to Goldfinger. But Forster wouldn't be Forster if this was only in frame for a tenth of a second. We really don't get any time to appreciate this with a nice establishing shot so it can resonate. Bond just escapes and takes care of the MI6 agents trying to stop him in some more fast editing in the elevator. For whatever reason, M's now back in completely trusting 007 again.
Give a shit about the CIA or their trumped up evidence. He's my agent, and I trust him. Go on.
I honestly have no clue what happened in between the moments he was raging at him, sending agents after him, and then fully trusting him again. I think the movie tries to be a lot like Bourne, with his own government going after him, but apart from this scene, it really doesn't go anywhere either. Anyway, Bond meets up with Felix Leiter, quickly learns that Green is meeting up with General Medrano in some major hotel in the desert, and Bond ends up evading some more CIA agents, who, fair enough, for the first time are trying to actually chase down Bond now. But it's only because Bond came to Felix himself. It's not like they ever made any effort to chase him down during the movie. So at this big hotel in the desert is where the climax of the movie will take place. A hotel and a desert. It really seems like the two most unlikely things to go together. It really doesn't make any sense. We learn that Green blackmails Medrano into signing a contract allowing him to control 60% of Bolivia's water supply, making Green Planet the sole water utility company of Bolivia. I guess it's an okay villain scheme, but it's not like it gets me on the edge of my seat or that signature gets me concerned in any way whatsoever. So meanwhile, Bond and Camille are preparing themselves for their big showdown. So C's after General Medrano for personal reasons, and Bond, I guess, hopefully will finally get some answers about Quantum that give any meaning. So he infiltrates the facility in a pretty badass way, killing the chief of police who was responsible for Mathis's death as he goes. A car ends up driving into some combustible hydrogen tanks or something, which causes the place to catch fire. Enter Forster's fourth elemental action scene. So General Medrano is out to rape another chick, but is soon confronted by Camille, while Bond is out in his final fight with Green. The two fights are constantly intertwined with each other. Oh, and Elvis is also there, and he dies. So I'm actually happy this fight takes place in a desert where there is nothing else going on outside of the place. Had this been in a crowded area, Forster would have definitely intertwined the fights with more shots of horse racing, or the opera performance to go with it all. Camille ends up shooting the general and gets her revenge. The fire gets more and more intense and Bond leaves Green there. There's a brief moment where Bond and Camille are trapped in the fire and we are left to believe Bond is forced to shoot her to quicken the process of her dying, as there is no more way out. It's pretty dark. Fortunately, he finds a way out. He sees Green escaping all by himself in a desert. Now is the time to finally learn about Quantum and learn about the secrets we were so desperate to find out throughout the whole movie.
I answered your questions. I told you what you wanted to know about Quantum.
Yes, you did.
Oh, come on! We don't get to hear any of that? Throughout this whole movie, we were forced to watch Bond grow to all kinds of random crap, IDing meaningless people, finding out some plan with water, attending meaningless parties, and when he finally gets the answers, we don't get any. So he leaves Green to die in the desert with a can of motor oil and drives off. He also says his goodbyes to Camille. No banging the main Bond girl this time, I guess that's a first. Instead he just leaves her with a kiss. But I guess in the context of the movie, that does make sense. And hey, at least he did Strawberry. Apparently Green shared information about the whereabouts of Vespa's boyfriend in Russia, the man who seduces women working for intelligence services, giving them necklaces and all that, and is secretly working for Quantum. The women are told that their boyfriend will be killed by Quantum unless they work for them. So now we're finally reached the point where Bond is ready to confront the bastard and get his revenge.
Is he still alive?
He is.
I'm surprised.
So am I. So in the end, Bond doesn't end up killing the guy. He recklessly killed all kinds of people and valuable leads throughout the entire film, working his way over to finally get to this one man he was after, and when he gets there, he doesn't do it. But I guess seeing Camille not getting much out of the revenge he got from killing Medrano has taught him to act more professional and take his ego out of the equation, and thus his character development is now complete. So really though, how is that any different to the ending of Casino Royale? The character development of Bond becoming more professional was almost identical in the previous movie. In this one he just went through so much pointless detours throughout the film, only to be left off at the exact same point. Yeah, he has now become the Bond we know. That really makes you wonder what the point of this whole film even was.
Bond, I need you back.
I never left.
So on that note, Bond now drops Vesper's necklace and moves on. He has found his solace and is ready for new missions awaiting him in the future. I think Quantum of Solace— oh Jesus! Oh yeah, the freaking gun barrel. They placed it at the end of the movie now. So if you were still hoping for it, here it is. So Quantum of Solace is the shortest Bond film in the series, but I'm honestly always relieved when we reach the ending, because it feels incredibly long. I think throughout the entire review you already learned that there's a lot of stuff I just find weird or have problems with. The editing, the weird storytelling, the odd, arty creative choices. What should have been an awesome sequel of Bond finding out more about the mysterious organization Vesper was part of turns into a story of all kinds of unnecessary, convoluted, unfinished detours. We just want Bond to get to the point already and reach his objective, but instead we get some random business guy who took Bolivia's water supply, a general who did some cruel things to the family of some other random chick, some stuff about water, oil, the CIA and MI6 being after Bond, and none of it is really executed that well. It really felt like the script just needed a lot more work, because Quantum had huge potential. I'm not sure if the writer's strike is to blame, or Forster, or the tight schedule, or all the above, but what we ended up with was a movie that just felt joyless and unfinished. I haven't really talked about Craig's performance as Bond himself that much in this review, but once again he does an excellent job with all the stuff that is given to him. He's just as convincing as he was in Casino Royale and really can't be faulted for the boring storylines he was forced to go through throughout this film. He really carries this movie by himself. Pretty much all the other characters are pretty uninteresting. And like I said before, that's a real shame, because I think a lot of them had the potential to be part of a fantastic Bond film. Another thing that always surprises me with Quantum of Solace is how little of it is actually memorable. By the time I walked out of the cinema, I think I probably already forgot about the majority of the characters and the actual plot. As a matter of fact, the first time I walked out of the cinema, I watched this one with two friends. At the time I was already known to be the big Bond fan, and they started questioning me. I was just telling myself I really liked this film, knowing deep down inside that I didn't, and I was massively confused about it. I remember my friends in the car ride back home asking stuff like, so what exactly was Quantum? And I was like, well, it's this big evil organization, and I definitely laid some groundwork for them to show up in future installments. And they were like, right, just like the ending of the previous film. But what did we learn in this one? And really though, they were right, and I knew it back then. I realized the exact same problems, probably on an even greater level myself, but it was hard to admit it. This was not a great Bond film. It had all the pieces to be a fantastic sequel, but the sad thing is, it ended up not being one at all. And to this very day, I'm still waiting for it to grow on me. But sadly, as a Bond fan, I had to go through the difficult task to admit the reality to myself that arguably the best Bond movie ever made was followed up by arguably one of the most disappointing ones. Are you a fan of my work and you just can't wait for other episodes or content to come up to the channel? Well, you can now join the DBF community on my Patreon page. Supporting my channel grants you access to all my latest videos 2 weeks before the regular viewers get to see it. Your name will also be included on the Supporter Hall of Fame, and you get the vote for the new content. And as a bonus for signing up, you will receive a personal thank you video from me, as well as these custom Blu-ray covers that I designed myself. These will all be received by email immediately, so you can pop them out of your printer and put them in empty Blu-ray covers to have your own DBF Blu-ray collection on your shelf. All support for giving back to my channel is appreciated immensely. You can find the link in the description, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot, guys.